She thought the financial chokehold would break her. Her husband, Devin, announced, self-satisfied, "I blocked all your cards. Now you'll have to ask me for money, even for your pads." His mother, Brenda, nodded approvingly, a smug smirk on her face. They were sure a hungry woman would quickly become compliant. They were confident in their power and control over the situation. But less than an hour later, an urgent call came through from the bank. "Hello, dear listeners. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel, where I present a new and interesting story. Enjoy the read." Alina pushed open the apartment door and froze in the hallway, listening. From the kitchen, she could hear Brenda's voice, even, self-righteous, with that particular tone that always signaled an impending lecture. Brenda was on the phone with a friend, but speaking loud enough for the entire unit to hear. "Well, what can I say, Sharon? The kids have been living with me for 3 years now, and the gratitude is zero. I cook for them, I do their laundry, and she still turns up her nose. Yesterday, she bought herself a coat for $800. Can you believe it? She's living off my dime, doesn't pay the utilities, but still has to buy fancy clothes." Alina took off her work heels, carefully placing them on the shelf by the door. She hung up her coat, the very same dark blue one that had earned her a fresh dose of venom for the past 2 days. She walked quietly toward the bedroom, trying not to draw attention. It was useless, of course. Brenda always sensed when her daughter-in-law returned from work. "No, I'm not saying anything, Sharon," her mother-in-law continued in the kitchen. "Let her live here. It's just that she has such an opinionated personality about everything. Day before yesterday, she started arguing about politics in front of Mr. Sterling. I nearly died of shame. Who is she to—" Alina closed the bedroom door, leaned against the frame, and let out a long breath. 3 years. 3 years of listening to this every single day. 3 years of smiling, nodding, and keeping quiet when all she wanted to do was scream. When she and Devin got married, Brenda had seemed like a sweet woman. A little straightforward, yes, but kind-hearted. "You two live with me for a while, sweeties," she had said back then. "Save up for your own place quietly, without paying rent, without extra expenses. I'll help you." The help ended a month after the wedding. It started with small things. "Alina, you oversalted the soup." "Alina, why did you forget to close the bathroom window again?" "Alina, why did you buy that brand of organic yogurt? I asked for the other kind." Then the small things escalated into a system. Brenda controlled Alina's every move. When she left, when she returned, who she talked to, and what she made for dinner. Devin either kept silent or just agreed with his mother, depending on the circumstances. He hadn't known how to argue with Brenda since childhood. It was easier to agree, nod, and wait it out. At first, Alina tried talking to her husband, explaining that living this way was unbearable. He'd shrug. "That's just how Mom is. What can you do? Just deal with it for a little while. We'll move out soon." Soon had stretched into 3 years. Alina walked to the window, looking out at the gray streets, slick with the March thaw. She had already saved $25,200. Her money. Every month she put away almost her entire net salary of $4,500. Devin barely knew about this account. He knew his wife had a checking account, but he never asked about the balance. Why would he? Every month he transferred $500 to her other card for pocket money, as if Alina were a teenager with an allowance and not a grown working woman. She opened the closet, grabbed her gym bag, and tossed in her workout clothes. She was going to the gym first thing in the morning. She had been planning to resume her training for a while. Brenda would definitely have something to say about it, something about throwing money away that could have been used for groceries or utilities, though Brenda never allowed them to pay the utilities. "It's my house. I pay for it," she'd declare on principle, only to hold it over Alina's head at every opportunity. Footsteps sounded outside the door. Brenda had finished her call and was surely coming to check on her daughter-in-law. Alina quickly changed into her sweats and a gray tee, pulled her hair into a ponytail, and looked at herself in the mirror. 31 years old, she looked pretty good, tired but not broken. The door creaked open without a knock. Brenda peeked in, giving Alina a critical once-over. "You're back?" The question was rhetorical. "Dinner in half an hour. I roasted chicken. Just don't tell me it's dry later. It's fresh, Normal chicken. I bought it this morning." "Thank you, Brenda," Elena replied in an even voice. "I'll help set the table." "No need. I'll do it myself. You'll just mix everything up. Last time, you put the forks on the wrong side." Brenda closed the door. Elena clenched her fists, counting to 10, the forks on the wrong side. My God, she was 31 years old. She was a senior financial controller at a construction and development company responsible for millions of dollars in transactions, and here she was, being scolded over a fork. She took out her phone and opened the banking app. Savings account, $25,200. 3 more months, and she would have enough for a deposit and a small 1-bedroom apartment. First month's rent, a security deposit, and minimal furniture. Everything was calculated. She was already quietly checking apartment listings and scoping out neighborhoods. The main thing was to hold on, not to snap, and not to say anything she'd regret. The second card, the one Devin transferred $500 to monthly, lay in a drawer. Elena rarely used it. Why would she? The money was more a symbol of control than help. Devin, on the other hand, thought he was supporting his wife. Sometimes he even said it out loud. "I give you money. You're not complaining, right?" She didn't complain. She just saved her own money and waited. Dishes rattled in the kitchen. Brenda had started setting the table. Elena walked out to the hall to offer help. Her mother-in-law stood by the stove, arranging the roasted chicken on a large platter. Seeing Elena, she pursed her lips. "I told you, don't bother. Just wash your hands and sit down. Devin will be home soon, and we'll eat." Elena nodded silently, went into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and lathered her hands. She looked at her reflection in the mirror above the sink. A calm face, steady eyes. No one would guess that she was simmering inside, that every day she held herself back from saying what she really thought. When she returned to the kitchen, Devin was already sitting at the table. He looked tired. His job as sales director for a regional distribution firm was stressful. He was on the phone all day, constantly smoothing over conflicts with clients. He looked up, nodding to Elena. No smile. "Hey." "Hey," she replied, sitting down across from him. Brenda settled at the head of the table, beginning to plate the chicken, a large portion for herself, generous for Devin, and a modest piece for Elena. The potatoes were also distributed unevenly. Then she placed a bowl of sliced vegetables on the table. "Eat while it's hot," she commanded. "Devin, how was your day?" "Fine, Mom. Tired, of course. One client tried to bleed me dry, wanted a 15% discount on a huge order." "Good job, son. You're such a hard worker, so responsible." Brenda glanced at Elena. "And how about you, dear? Everything okay at work?" The question held a hint of irony, as if Elena's job were just a little hobby, nothing serious. "Fine," Elena answered curtly. "We submitted the quarterly report. Everything balanced out." "Well, that's nice." Brenda took her fork and started on the chicken. "Listen, Devin, we should drive up to the cabin this weekend and see how things look after the winter. The snow might not be completely gone yet. We need to check the roof, too, in case it's leaking." Devin nodded while chewing. "Let's go Saturday." "Good. And you, Elena, you'll stay home and make us lunch for when we get back. We'll be hungry after all that work." Elena didn't have a chance to respond. Devin didn't feel the need to object either. The matter was decided. There was nothing to discuss. It was always like this. Plans were made without consulting her, then announced calmly as a certainty. Dinner continued in silence. Brenda occasionally interjected comments about the neighbors, the weather, or how eggs had gone up in price again at the grocery store. Devin mumbled his agreement. Elena remained silent, methodically chewing the chicken. Dry, despite Brenda's assurances, overcooked to be honest, but commenting on it would only lead to a wounded silence and a 30-minute justification of how difficult it was to cook for ungrateful people. After dinner, Elena began clearing the dishes. Brenda, as usual, stopped her. "Leave it. I'll wash them myself. You're never careful enough. I always have to rewash everything anyway." Elena put the plates back on the table and left the kitchen. In the hallway, she ran into Devin. He was heading to the living room to watch TV, like every evening. She tried to catch his eye. "Devin, we need to talk." He frowned. About what? Us? The way we live? Later, okay? I'm exhausted today. Later. Always later. Alina let him pass, walked into the bedroom, closed the door, sat on the bed, and pulled out her phone, opening the app again. $25,200. 3 months. Just 3 months and she would be free. The sound of the television drifted from the living room, some talk show, loud voices, the musical theme. Brenda was clattering dishes in the kitchen. Devin was probably sprawled on the couch, staring at the screen. A typical evening, a typical life. 3 years of this typicality. Alina opened the Notes app on her phone and found the list of apartments she was considering. 1 bedrooms on the outskirts of the city, but decent, recently renovated, renting for between $1,200 and $1,500 a month. Totally manageable if she was only paying for herself. A deposit was another month's rent. That made $3,000 needed to start. Furniture, at least the basics. A sleeper sofa, a table, a dresser. She could keep it under $5,000 if she bought decent used pieces. Dishes, bedding, small things, another $2,000. Total moving cost, $10,000. That would leave her with $15,000. A cushion for the first few months while she settled in. She checked the calculation one more time. Yes, it was realistic. In 3 months, she could walk away. She just had to endure, not lose her cool, and not give them a reason for a scene. The door cracked open. Devin looked in. "I'm going to bed. Got an early start tomorrow." "Okay." He walked to the closet and pulled out his pajamas. Alina watched his back. She had once loved this man. She had fallen for him 4 years ago at a party thrown by mutual friends. Back then, Devin had seemed funny, easygoing, and attentive, courting her beautifully. Flowers, walks, weekend trips out of town. They married a year later. He said he wanted to start a family, that Alina was the one he saw a future with. Then they moved in with his mother, and Devin changed. Or maybe he just showed his true colors, the man who had lived under Brenda's wing his whole life and didn't know how to say no to her. Alina spent a long time thinking about whether she could change the situation. She talked, explained, and pleaded. Useless. Devin would nod every time, promised to talk to his mother, but nothing changed. It was easier to agree, wait it out, and pretend everything was fine. "Why aren't you sleeping?" he asked, changing clothes. Thinking. About what? Different things. Devin shrugged and lay down on his side of the bed. 2 minutes later, he was breathing evenly, asleep. Alina sat for a while longer, staring into the darkness outside the window, then lay down, pulling the covers over herself. Through the wall, she could hear Brenda's voice. She was talking on the phone with someone else, probably her sister Denise. They discussed the news every night. The words were indistinguishable, but the intonation was familiar. The same self-assurance, the same condescension. Alina closed her eyes. 3 months. Endure it for 3 months, then slam the door and never hear that voice again. Never again be lectured about over-salted soup and incorrectly placed forks. Never again feel like a powerless little girl in someone else's house. Deep inside, a tiny spark of cold, methodical malice glowed. Not rage, no, malice. Alina wasn't the type to cause a scene or slam doors. She knew how to wait, how to save, and when the time came, she would leave so quietly and calmly that Brenda wouldn't even realize she had lost a convenient target for her nitpicking until it was too late. Her last thought before falling asleep was of this: how she would pack her things, call a taxi, and leave without looking back, without explaining. Just leave, and let them figure out how to live without her. The morning started as usual. Alina woke up at 7. Devin had already left for work. He always left early. He had to be at his office across the city by 8. Brenda was clattering dishes in the kitchen, making her breakfast. Alina quietly got ready, drank her coffee standing by the bedroom window. Going into the kitchen meant getting another morning dose of instruction on how to properly start the day. Work was peaceful. The quarterly report was filed. No audits were scheduled. She could focus on current tasks without rushing. Alina processed invoices, reconciled receipts, and exchanged emails with vendors, a familiar routine that didn't require much stress. By lunchtime, she was almost done. During her break, her colleague Shayla popped into her cubicle with a plastic container of salad. "Hey, Alina, want to eat together, or are you just going to stare at your phone again?" Alina smiled and put down her pen. "Let's go. I need a distraction." They went down to the first-floor break room and settled at a table by the window. Shayla was the only person in the office Alina shared details of her home life with. Not everything, but the general outline, the mother-in-law, the constant criticism, the spineless husband. "So how's your Brenda?" Shayla asked, opening her container. "Any new material?" "Yesterday, she brought up the forks being on the wrong side of the plate." "Seriously? My God, how do you put up with it?" "I'm saving up for a rental. 3 more months, and I'm out of there." Shayla shook her head. "I would have told her to go jump off a cliff a long time ago, or made your husband choose, me or Mommy." "He'd choose Mommy," Alina replied calmly. "I checked. It's easier to just leave on my own. I'll file for divorce once I move out. I don't want a dramatic scene in their house. Let them figure it out afterward." Shayla sighed and picked up her fork. "You're a saint. I wouldn't have the patience." "Not a saint. I just know that a fight won't solve anything. Brenda is the kind of person who is always right. It's useless to argue. It's better to quietly pack up and go." They finished eating and returned to their desks. Alina checked the clock. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, an hour left of the workday. She could manage to close out a couple of payments and reconcile a disputed invoice with a contractor's accounting department. She immersed herself in the documents. Time flew by. At 6 o'clock, she left the office and boarded the commuter train. On the way, she stopped by a mall and looked at a coat she'd wanted for a long time. Dark blue, fitted, and wool. An $800 price tag. Alina tried it on, looking at herself in the mirror. It looked great. She needed new outerwear badly. Her old jacket was 3 seasons old, threadbare, and out of style. She paid with her main savings card, the one Devin barely knew about. The saleswoman packaged the coat in a branded bag. Alina left the store feeling satisfied. For the first time in a long time, she had bought something for herself simply because she wanted it, without agonizing over calculations or self-imposed restrictions. Her spirits were high until she opened the apartment door. Brenda met her in the foyer with an expression of righteous fury. "What is that?" Her mother-in-law jabbed a finger at the shopping bag. "A coat," Alina replied calmly, taking off her shoes. "I see it's a coat. How much?" $800. Brenda's face stretched, then turned crimson. $800? Are you out of your mind? Alina hung the bag on the hook, trying to keep her composure. "I needed a coat. My old jacket is worn out." "You're living off my dime. You don't pay utilities, you're living rent-free, and you spend $800 on a piece of fabric." Brenda's voice rose with every word. "You're squandering family money. Devin's paycheck doesn't stretch forever, you know. It's my money, Brenda. I bought the coat with my own salary." "What is your salary?" Brenda scoffed. "You live in this family, so all the money is shared. You should have consulted me, asked for permission. Maybe we needed that $800 for something else." Alina pressed her lips together, feeling the familiar malice rising inside. Ask her mother-in-law for permission to buy a coat with her own money. Absurd. "I don't feel the need to ask for permission to buy something with money I earned myself," she said evenly. "Oh, is that right?" Brenda crossed her arms over her chest. "So now you're getting arrogant. Well, we'll see about that." She turned and stalked into the kitchen. Alina went into the bedroom and closed the door. Her hands were shaking from suppressed anger. She grabbed her phone and texted Devin. "Your mother just had a meltdown because I bought a coat. With my own money. You need to talk to her." The reply came 10 minutes later. "We'll discuss it later." Later. Always later. Devin got home around 8. Brenda had set the table. Chicken again, this time stewed with vegetables. Alina only left the bedroom for dinner, not wanting to run into her mother-in-law any earlier. She sat down silently and picked up her fork. Devin was chewing, not looking up, Brenda watched her son expectantly. Finally, he put down his fork and sighed. Alina, Mom says you bought an expensive coat. $800, Alina confirmed, with my salary. Yeah, okay, but… He hesitated, glancing at his mother. You should have checked with us. We're a family. Alina slowly put down her fork. Checked about what? About needing outerwear? About how I spend money I earned myself? That's not the point. It's just, we live together. We have to agree on everything. Agree with whom? With your mother about my paycheck? Devin grimaced. Don't be like that. I'm just saying you need to be more sensitive. Mom works hard, she cooks, she cleans, and I what? Sometimes you act, well, not very tactful. Brenda nodded triumphantly. Alina felt something inside her snap. Not very tactful. So buying a coat with her own money was tactless. I see, she said quietly. It's all clear. She stood up from the table and walked out of the kitchen. She heard her mother-in-law's voice behind her. See, Devin, her attitude has completely soured. She used to at least listen to what you told her, and now… Alina closed the bedroom door, cutting off the rest of the sentence. She sat on the bed, staring at the wall. She was burning up inside. She had honestly tried to live in peace, stayed silent, endured, avoided conflict, and saved her money so she could leave quietly, without drama. But every day they chipped away at her, little by little, droplet by droplet. 3 months. She had to hold on for 3 months. Then, freedom. The next day, the atmosphere in the apartment was strained. Brenda pointedly ignored her daughter-in-law. She clattered dishes in the kitchen with extra aggression. Devin fled to work early without even saying goodbye. Alina followed, breathing a sigh of relief as the front door closed behind her. All day she worked on autopilot, her mind elsewhere. How could she save faster? Maybe she could take on some freelance bookkeeping work. Many people she knew did that. A couple of clients, easy reports, another $1,000 to $1,500 a month. Then she could move out even sooner. She got home around 7 that evening, opened the door, and heard voices in the kitchen. Brenda was on the phone, speaking unusually softly, almost cajolingly. Yes, of course, Denise. I know it's not a huge amount, but I need it for renovations in the unit. I've been meaning to replace the windows forever. So, I finally decided to do it. The interest? Oh, honey, I'm not going to one of those payday loan places. This is a legitimate bank loan. The interest is totally reasonable. Yes, $20,000 for 3 years. It was quick to process. Well, I don't understand all this internet stuff, to be honest. Alina walked into the bedroom and changed clothes. Brenda was taking out a $20,000 loan for renovations, but everything was fine in the apartment. The windows didn't need replacing. They had installed plastic ones 5 years ago. So, she was lying to her friend. Why? About 20 minutes later, Brenda knocked on the bedroom door. Alina opened it. Her mother-in-law stood in the doorway with a strained smile. Alina, you're an accountant. You understand banking. Help me fill out this loan application, please. Alina narrowed her eyes. A loan for what? For renovations. I want to replace the windows and change the wallpaper. I need $20,000. The bank already approved it. I just need to complete the online application, and I don't understand any of it. Devin is always busy, no time for him. But you're smart and educated. It'll only take you 5 minutes. In Brenda's voice was an uncharacteristic softness, almost subservience. Alina understood. Brenda hated asking for anything, especially from her daughter-in-law, but she clearly needed the money right away. All right, Alina nodded. Give me your phone, I'll take a look. Brenda beamed, handing over her smartphone. Alina took it, went to the kitchen, sat at the table, and opened the banking app, finding the approved application. $20,000, 12% interest, 3-year term, a standard consumer loan. They already have your ID details, right? Alina asked. Yes, everything's there. Just need to fill out the form and confirm. Alina started filling in the fields, Brenda's details, her workplace address. Brenda was formally listed as a part-time worker at a municipal office, though she hadn't worked there in years. It was just to ensure a full work history for retirement. Alina reached the section for co-borrowers and guarantors. "Do you need to add a guarantor?" "No need. They approved me as is." Alina paused. The muscles in her jaw tightened. The idea came to her suddenly. She got approved quickly. She looked at Brenda, sitting across from her with a pleased expression. This was the woman who had poisoned her life for 3 years, who had controlled her every move, begrudged her every meal, and just yesterday caused a scene over a coat. Alina looked back at the phone. Her fingers typed in the section for co-borrowers. She added herself, entering her details: ID, address, place of employment. In the co-borrower section, she selected the right to early repayment and account management. She left the financial liability section empty. There was a default dash for certain types of family loans, where the co-borrower acts only as an administrator with account management rights, but without the obligation to repay. This was a subtle detail few people read in the contract. Formally, Alina gained access to manage the loan, could pay it off early, or even terminate the contract, but she herself was not obliged to repay the money. That responsibility remained with the primary borrower, Brenda. Banks sometimes offered this option for family loans, so spouses or close relatives could assist with financial management. Alina filled in the remaining fields and confirmed the application using the text message code that came to Brenda's phone. It took about 10 minutes total. "Done," she said, handing the phone back. "The loan is processed. The money should hit your account within the hour." Brenda took the phone, squinting suspiciously at the screen. "Everything's right?" "Yes, check it over." Brenda quickly scanned the text on the screen and nodded. Of course, she didn't read the entire contract. Why would she? Her daughter-in-law was the specialist, the accountant. She had done it correctly. "Well, thanks," Brenda muttered, the familiar coldness already creeping back into her voice. "At least you were useful for something." Alina nodded silently and walked out of the kitchen. In the bedroom, she closed the door and leaned her back against it. Her heart was pounding. She had just done something that could change everything. Or nothing. It depended on what Brenda did next. Half an hour later, a joyful shriek came from the kitchen. The money had arrived. Alina opened her banking app and logged in through the co-borrower section. The system accepted her credentials and displayed the loan information. $20,000 in Brenda's account, management access confirmed. Alina closed the app. She wouldn't do anything yet, just in case. The next day, Brenda was in an excellent mood. She was humming in the kitchen, making pancakes. She even smiled at Alina at breakfast. The money must have been very much needed. Alina didn't ask what for. It wasn't her business. A day later, Brenda left in the morning and returned at noon with a look of satisfaction. At dinner, she mentioned to Devin, "Devin, I put half of the loan money into a certificate of deposit at 15% for 6 months. Can you believe it? I'll make money on the spread. I took the loan at 12% and put it in at 15%. It's smart business." Devin nodded, not really absorbing his mother's financial schemes. Alina silently finished her soup. So $10,000 was already in a CD, taken out of the account, frozen for 6 months. Clever? Greedy? Typical Brenda. Always trying to profit from everything, extracting the maximum from any situation. 2 more days passed. The atmosphere in the house eased slightly. Brenda stopped being sarcastic about everything. The money had improved her mood. Alina kept quiet, trying to stay out of sight. Work, home, work, home. The usual cycle. Friday evening, Alina stayed late at the office, finishing up a report. She got home around 8, opened the apartment door, and heard a loud conversation in the kitchen. Devin and Brenda were arguing about something. "Mom, why do you need so much cash?" Devin's voice sounded confused. "Because, son, I know how to manage money. I put some in a CD and I lent the rest to Denise for interest. She'll pay me back with interest in a month. I'll make even more. The rest is for current expenses. I know what I'm doing." "But it's a loan. You have to pay it back." "I'll pay it back, don't you worry. The CD interest will cover the loan interest. I'll even have some left over. You'll see, I planned it all out." Alina went into the bedroom without greeting them, closed the door, and pulled out her phone. So, Brenda had already spent the loan, $10,000 in a CD that couldn't be withdrawn early without losing the interest. Some amount lent to her friend Denise. The rest, who knew where? Brenda was playing financial games, trying to profit from other people's money. Alina opened the app and checked the loan account. Yes, the entire amount had been withdrawn. The balance was zero. Principal debt, $20,000. The payment schedule was laid out for 3 years. The first payment was due in a month, $800 and change. She closed the app. Her hands weren't shaking. Inside, she felt a cold clarity. Alina wasn't planning anything yet. She was just watching. But somewhere deep in her consciousness, an understanding was growing. She had a tool, a lever, a way to respond if it came to that. The weekend was tense. Brenda resumed her nitpicking. The soup was undersalted. Alina spent too long in the bathroom. The music in her room was too loud, even though the volume was barely audible. Devin kept silent, hiding behind his laptop. Sunday evening, her mother-in-law threw another fit. Alina was making dinner, pasta with chicken and vegetables. Brenda walked into the kitchen, tasted the sauce, and grimaced. "Oversalted again. Don't you have any taste buds?" "I think it's fine," Alina said calmly, stirring the pan. "You think it's fine, but Devin and I have to eat it. You always ruin everything. You can't cook, and you clean half-heartedly. It's just the appearance of work." Alina clenched her teeth, continuing to cook. Brenda didn't stop. "And you allow yourself too many liberties. Buying a coat without asking, spending money left and right. Don't think I don't notice. You're living here rent-free with food provided and no gratitude, just complaints." "I'm not living rent-free," Alina said quietly, without turning around. "I work. I earn money. I pay for my own things." "Working?" Brenda scoffed. "How much do you earn? Peanuts, probably. But this apartment, the utilities, the food, it's all mine. So keep quiet and be grateful." Alina turned off the stove, transferred the pasta to a large bowl, and turned around, looking her mother-in-law in the eye. "Brenda, I'm tired. I'm tired of your criticism. I'm tired of justifying every little thing. I try to live peacefully, not to conflict, but every day you find a reason to humiliate me." Brenda stood straight, crossing her arms. "Oh, humiliation! So, telling you the truth is humiliating? Well, forgive me, but I'm used to calling things as I see them. If you're miserable here, nobody's forcing you to stay. The door is right there." Alina swallowed, feeling everything inside her tighten into a hard knot. The door is right there, as if it were that simple. Just pick up and leave. But she couldn't leave right now. She only had enough money for the first month's rent. What then? She needed to hold out for 3 more months. 3 months, and she would be ready. "Understood," Alina said flatly. "Thank you for your hospitality." She took the bowl of pasta and carried it to the bedroom. She had no energy to eat in Brenda's presence in the kitchen. She closed the door, sat on the bed, her hands shaking, a lump in her throat. 3 months. Just 3 months. And then she would slam that door so hard, Brenda would remember it for the rest of her life. Monday started with rain. Alina woke up to the sound of drops hitting the window pane. 7 o'clock. Devin was still asleep. Her mother-in-law was already clattering dishes in the kitchen. A typical morning. Alina quietly got dressed, gathered her things, and slipped out of the apartment without going to the kitchen. She didn't have the strength to listen to any more comments. At work, the day dragged on. Alina processed documents mechanically. Her thoughts were far away. The evening before, after Sunday's argument, she barely slept, replaying the conversation with her mother-in-law in her head. "The door is right there." The phrase festered. Brenda wasn't even trying to hide that she considered her daughter-in-law a burden, a freeloader, a superfluous person in the house. At lunchtime, Shayla looked into her cubicle again. "Elena, why are you so pale? Did your mother-in-law get to you again?" Elena nodded without looking up from the monitor. "Yesterday, she told me that if I'm miserable here, the door is right there." Shayla sat on the edge of the desk. "Listen, maybe you should really just move out? Even rent a room somewhere just to get away from her." "I don't have enough money yet. I need to save for about 3 more months to have a cushion. I don't want to get into debt later." "I get it. Hang in there. Summer's coming? Vacation? Maybe you can at least take a break from them?" Elena managed a bitter smile. "My vacation is in August. I have to survive until then." Shayla sighed, patted her friend's shoulder, and left. Elena returned to work, but she couldn't concentrate. One thought kept circling in her mind. How much longer could she endure this? She got home around 7 that evening. She had intentionally stayed late at the office, completing a report that didn't exist, simply because she didn't want to go back. She opened the apartment door and heard voices in the living room. Devin was talking to his mother, discussing something about the cabin. Elena went to the bedroom, changed, pulled out her phone, and texted her husband. "We need to talk, seriously." The reply came 5 minutes later. Later, always later. Elena lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. A vague unease was growing inside her, a premonition that something was about to happen. Dinner passed in a strained silence. Brenda was quiet. Devin was quiet. Elena ate quickly, not lifting her gaze. After dinner, she helped clear the table. Her mother-in-law accepted the help silently, not even saying thank you. Elena returned to the bedroom and closed the door. Devin came in half an hour later, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at his wife. "You wanted to talk?" "Yes, about us, about how we're living." He sighed. "About Mom again?" "Not just about us. Devin, we can't live like this. Your mother humiliates me every day. You stay silent. I'm exhausted." "Elena, you have to understand. My mother is just like that. She's used to being in charge her whole life. It's hard for her to accept that I'm married, that I have my own family. You just need to endure it. She'll get used to it." 3 years, Devin. I've endured this for 3 years. She's not getting used to it. She's getting worse. "You're exaggerating. Mom takes care of us. She cooks, she cleans. You don't have to be so sharp." Elena felt something flip inside her, exaggerating. He didn't even see the problem. He didn't want to see it. "Fine," she said quietly. "I understand." Devin let out a sigh of relief, patted his wife's arm. "That's my girl. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine." He went to the living room to watch TV. Elena remained seated on the bed, staring into space. Everything will be fine. Nothing would ever be fine. The next day, Tuesday, passed in the same routine. Work, home, silence. Brenda started nitpicking again. Elena closed the door too loudly. She hung the towel incorrectly in the bathroom. Tiny things that made up a suffocating atmosphere. In the evening, as Elena was washing dishes after dinner, Brenda walked into the kitchen and leaned against the doorframe. "Elena, I was thinking maybe you should look for another job closer to home so you can come back earlier. You're always late. Dinner's already cold. It's inconvenient." Elena wiped a plate and placed it on the drying rack. "My job suits me." "Well, of course, but the family suffers. Devin works all day, then he waits for you, wants to spend time with you, but you're always busy or tired. Devin spends his evenings in front of the TV, Brenda, not with me. That's because you don't pay attention to him." Brenda raised her voice. "If you were a proper wife, caring and thoughtful, he would spend time with you instead of the TV." Elena turned around and looked at her mother-in-law. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to be compliant," Brenda cut in. "To know your place, not to get uppity, not to argue, not to buy an $800 coat without permission, to respect your elders and to obey." "I'm not a child to obey," Elena said evenly. "I'm 31 years old." "Then act your age. A grown woman should understand who the lady of the house is. You've got an inflated sense of self-importance." Elena dried her hands on the towel, hung it on the hook, turned around, and walked out of the kitchen. Her mother-in-law was still saying something behind her, but Elena didn't listen. She closed the bedroom door and leaned her back against it. Compliant. Brenda wanted her to be compliant, submissive, silent, and convenient. Elena took out her phone, opened the banking app, and looked at her savings account. $25,200. Then she switched to the co-borrower section and looked at Brenda's loan. $20,000 in debt, half of which was frozen in a CD, and the rest lent to Denise. The money was spent, distributed. Brenda was playing her financial games, confident in her own invincibility. Elena closed the app. Not now, not yet. Wednesday started with another argument. In the morning, Brenda discovered the refrigerator was out of milk. "Elena!" she yelled from the kitchen. "Did you buy milk yesterday?" "No," Elena replied, coming out of the bedroom. "I didn't know we were out." "How did you not know? You saw there wasn't much left. You should have bought some. Now Devin has no milk for his coffee." "I can run to the store." "Too late. He has to leave in 20 minutes. You're so irresponsible, that's what. You never think about anyone but yourself." Devin came out of the bathroom, having heard his mother yelling. "Mom, it's fine. I'll drink it black. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? You like it with milk, and she forgot again. Everything always slips her mind." Elena pressed her lips together, walked past them to the bathroom, closed the door, and washed her face with cold water, looking at her reflection. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, exhausted, utterly exhausted. At work, Shayla immediately noticed her friend's condition. "Elena, are you sleeping at all? You look awful." "Barely," Elena admitted. "It's something new every day there. Today she was screaming about milk. Milk!" Shayla shook her head. "Listen, just forget about it all. Rent a room, even a corner somewhere. Your health is more important." "Soon," Elena whispered. "It will all be over soon." Something in her voice alarmed Shayla. "What is it? Don't get any crazy ideas?" "I won't. I'm just tired of enduring it." The day dragged on endlessly. Elena caught herself several times staring out the window, seeing nothing. Her thoughts were jumbled. She could hear her mother-in-law's voice in her head. "Compliant, know your place." She got home around 8 in the evening. She had purposely stayed late at the office, finishing a report that didn't exist, just because she didn't want to go back. She opened the apartment door, walked into the bedroom without looking into the kitchen, changed, and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Half an hour later, the door flew open. Devin walked in, and Elena immediately knew from the look on his face that something had happened. He was pale, his lips pursed. In his hand, he held her pocket money card, the one with the $500 on it that she rarely used. "What is it?" Elena asked, pushing herself up on her elbows. Devin stepped closer. His face twisted into a smirk of malice. He held the card as if it were an ace of spades. "I blocked all your cards," he announced, clearly enjoying the moment. "Now you'll have to ask me for money even for your pads." Elena froze. A chill ran down her spine. She looked at her husband, standing there triumphantly, and couldn't believe what was happening. He had blocked her card, the card he himself transferred money to, the card she barely used. But that didn't matter now. He had done it specifically to humiliate her, to put her in her place. Brenda's figure appeared in the doorway. She stood with her arms crossed, a smug smile playing on her lips. She looked down at her daughter-in-law like a cat watching a captured mouse. "A hungry woman quickly becomes compliant," she said moralistically, with undisguised pleasure. "Then you'll understand who the lady of the house is." Elena nodded silently, lowering her eyes. A hurricane raged inside, but her face remained calm. She had learned not to show emotion over the past 3 years. She had learned to hide everything deep inside. Devin and Brenda waited for a reaction, tears, begging, a scene, but they got nothing. "I understand," Elena said quietly. Devin was slightly taken aback. He had expected resistance, but then he smirked again, pleased with himself, and turned to his mother. "Let's go, Mom. Let her think about her behavior." They left the room, closing the door. Alina remained seated on the bed. Her hands rested on her knees, her breathing even. She counted to 10, then 20, then grabbed her phone and opened the banking app. Her main savings account? It worked. Devin had simply forgotten about it. He thought the $500 card was the only one she had. $25,200 was still there. Alina switched to the co-borrower section, logging into Brenda's $20,000 loan. Payment schedule, 3-year term. Her mother-in-law was sure everything was under control, that she would profit from the interest, that the CD interest would cover the loan interest. Greed and self-assurance were her weaknesses. Alina looked at the list of available operations: early repayment, account management, contract termination. She selected transfer funds, entered the amount, $20,000. In the recipient line, she found an official verified charity foundation for children's hospitals with a state license, an irrevocable transfer. Her fingers didn't tremble. There was icy clarity inside. Alina confirmed the operation, entering the text code. The transaction went through. $20,000 was gone to charity forever. Then she blocked Brenda's card. The function was available to the co-borrower. She filed a request for early contract termination, demanding the immediate repayment of funds. The bank automatically began the procedure. Under the contract terms, if the co-borrower with management rights terminates the loan early, the primary borrower must repay the full amount within 3 days, or penalties and fines would be applied. Alina closed the app, placed the phone on the nightstand, stood up, walked to the closet, pulled out her duffel bag, and started packing. The necessities: jeans, a few tees, underwear, documents, makeup, a phone charger. Everything else could be picked up later, or not at all. She moved methodically, calmly, without haste. Voices drifted from the living room. Devin and Brenda were talking, discussing how quickly Alina would come crawling back for food money. They laughed, making plans. Alina zipped up the bag, grabbed her jacket, and looked at the room for the last time. She had lived here for 3 years. She had endured for 3 years. She had waited for the moment she could leave for 3 years. The moment had arrived. She walked into the hallway just as Brenda's phone rang. Her mother-in-law was sitting on the sofa next to Devin, watching some show. Brenda reluctantly picked up the phone without looking at the screen. "Yes, hello." Alina stopped in the living room doorway, leaning against the frame, and watched. Her mother-in-law's face gradually changed. First bewilderment, then confusion, then terror. Color drained from her face, her lips trembled. "What? How is that possible?" Brenda jumped up from the sofa, the phone pressed to her ear, grabbing the back of the couch with her free hand. "No, wait, I don't understand." Devin also stood up, looking at his mother anxiously. He took the phone and held it to his ear. "Hello? Yes, I'm her son. What are you saying?" Alina watched silently as he listened, his face turning crimson, his head shaking, as if trying to shake off the words coming through the phone. The bank operator spoke calmly, professionally. The co-borrower exercised her right. "Funds have been redirected to charity. The contract has been unilaterally terminated. The repayment demand takes immediate effect." "What co-borrower?" Devin practically yelled into the phone. His mother didn't have a co-borrower. "Your wife, Alina Whitlock," the operator's level voice came through the receiver. Devin slowly lowered the phone and turned to Alina, who was still standing in the doorway. His face was twisted in shock and rage. Brenda sank back onto the sofa. Her face was gray as ash, her hands shaking. She frantically grabbed the phone back, trying to say something to the operator, but he repeated the same thing. The sum of $20,000 must be repaid within 3 days, or fines and penalties will be applied. "Devin, they're saying," her mother-in-law stammered, looking at her son, "that the loan is blocked, the money is gone, and I have to repay $20,000 in 3 days, or else penalties and fines. How is this possible?" Devin threw the phone on the sofa and spun toward Alina. His eyes were burning with fury. "What did you do?" Alina looked at him calmly. Her voice was even, cold. "The same thing you did. I blocked access to the money." "It's my mother's loan! You had no right!" "I did. I am the co-borrower with management rights. Your mother herself asked me to process the loan. She signed the contract without reading it. Check it if you don't believe me." Brenda grabbed the phone, frantically scrolling through the screen. She found the contract, scanned the text, and went even paler. There it was, in black and white. Elina Whitlock, co-borrower with the right to early repayment and account management. But it said, her mother-in-law stammered, unable to finish the sentence. "You didn't read it?" Elina asked harshly. "You relied on me because I'm the accountant, the specialist, and I did everything correctly. Legally, it's clean. I had the right to dispose of those funds, and I did." "Where?" Devon shouted. "Where did you put it?" "I transferred it to charity, to children's hospitals, irrevocably." Silence. Brenda stared at her daughter-in-law, not believing her ears. Devon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You've lost your mind," he finally stammered. "You stole $20,000 from my mother." "I didn't steal. I transferred it. There's a difference. To steal is to take it for myself. I gave it to a good cause. Your mother took the loan and spent the money. Now she has to pay it back." "But you're the co-borrower." Devon seized on the thought like a lifeline. "You'll be sued too. You'll have to pay it back." Elina shook her head. "No, Devon. I listed myself with management rights, but without financial obligations. Read the contract carefully since your mother didn't. All financial obligations fall on the primary borrower, that is, Brenda. I only managed the account and exercised my right." Brenda looked into the phone one more time, reading the contract. Her lips moved, her eyes darted over the lines. Then she slowly raised her head. "The $10,000 in the CD," she whispered. "I can't withdraw it early or I'll lose all the interest. I gave another $10,000 to Denise. She promised to pay it back in a month. And the rest?" "The rest you spent," Elina said, nodding. "I know. You were playing financial games, trying to profit from the interest. Greed destroyed you." Devon took a step toward his wife. His face was contorted with fury. "You'll return the money right now. I won't allow you to—" "You won't allow me?" Elina smirked. "Devon, you just blocked my card, announcing that I'd have to ask you for money even for my pads. You thought you put me in my place, that you made me compliant, but you forgot one thing." "What?" "That the card you blocked wasn't the only one. My salary account is fine. I barely used the one you blocked anyway. So, no, I won't have to beg you for anything. But your mother will have to beg everyone. The bank gave her 3 days." Elina turned, walked to the bedroom, grabbed her bag and jacket, and returned to the hallway. Devon and Brenda stood rooted to the spot. Brenda suddenly sprang up and lunged at Elina. "You can't just leave. You have to help. You did this yourself. Give the money back." "I can't," Elina replied calmly, putting on her jacket. "A charitable transfer is irreversible. The money is gone forever. Now it's the primary borrower's problem." "But I won't be able to pay back $20,000 in 3 days." Brenda's voice cracked into a scream. "Do you understand? They'll fine me. They'll start adding penalties. I'll be in debt." Elina gave her mother-in-law a long look. "For 3 years, you and Devon humiliated me. Every day, every minute, you picked at every little thing, begrudged me every bite of food, demanding that I be compliant, that I know my place. I endured it, saved my money, and waited for the moment I could leave. And today, you decided to break me completely. You blocked my card, told me I'd be begging for pads. You thought I would break and become submissive." "You're getting revenge," Devon said hoarsely. "This is revenge." "No," Elina shook her head. "This is justice. You wanted to control me through money. Your mother wanted to make me dependent. I just showed you that control is a double-edged sword. You controlled me. I controlled your mother's loan. The difference is my money was earned by me and yours is debt, and now you have to pay it back." She opened the apartment door, stepped out onto the landing, and looked back one last time. "By the way, Brenda, you wanted me to become compliant when I was hungry. Now let's see who becomes compliant when their wallet is empty. The door slammed shut. Alina walked down the stairs, pulled out her phone, and called a taxi. Her hands weren't shaking. Inside, there was a strange calm, relief, and freedom. The taxi arrived in 5 minutes. Alina got in and gave the driver the address of a cheap but decent motel on the edge of the city. She would spend the night there and start looking for an apartment tomorrow. She had plenty of money in her account, $25,200. Her money, earned through honest work. The car started. Alina looked out the window at the passing houses. In the apartment upstairs, true hell was probably breaking out. Brenda was calling everyone she knew, trying to borrow money. Devin was pacing frantically, trying to come up with a plan. His mother was crying, blaming her daughter-in-law for every sin. Alina smirked. Let them feel what it was like to be cornered, what it was like to depend on someone else's will, what it was like to have no choice. Her phone vibrated. A text message from Devin. "Come back immediately. We'll discuss everything." Alina deleted the message and blocked the number. There was nothing to discuss. Everything was already decided. The car pulled up to the motel. Alina paid the driver, got out, walked into the lobby, and went to the front desk. The administrator smiled. "Good evening. You need a room?" "Yes, for one night. ID, please." Alina handed over her license. The administrator checked her in and handed her a key card. Alina went up to the third-floor room and opened the door. The room was small but clean. A bed, a table, a TV, a shower stall in the bathroom. She placed her bag on the floor, took off her jacket, and sat on the edge of the bed, looking out the window. Car lights flashed below. The lights of high-rises shone in the distance. The city went on with its life, oblivious to small human dramas. Alina took out her phone, opened her notes, and looked at the list of apartments she had scouted. Tomorrow, she would start making calls, find something suitable, move in, and start a new life. Her phone vibrated again. A call from an unknown number. Devin calling from a different phone, probably. Alina declined the call. Another call, another unknown number. She declined it a third time. Alina turned off her phone. Silence. For the first time in 3 years, it was true silence. No one was yelling, no one was criticizing, no one was demanding she be compliant. Alina lay on the bed, closed her eyes, and fell asleep almost instantly. A deep, peaceful sleep, without nightmares, without anxiety. Just sleep. In the apartment across town, Brenda frantically called everyone she knew, begging to borrow money. Her sister Denise refused to return the $10,000 early. She had already spent it. She would return it in a month as agreed. The CD could be withdrawn early, but then all the interest would be forfeited, and instead of $10,000, Brenda would only get $9,500. There was no other money at all. Devin paced the room, trying to call his wife. The phone was off. He called Alina's work number. The automated voice answered. The workday was over. He sent texts. They didn't go through. Brenda was crying. For the first time in many years, she was genuinely terrified. The bank wasn't joking. 3 days, and the penalties would start. Then the case would go to collectors, and then they could sue. "Devin," she sobbed, "what are we going to do?" Devin didn't know what to say. For the first time, he saw his mother weak, helpless, and lost. And for the first time, he understood that his wife had completely outmaneuvered them, using their own weapons, money, control, dependence, against them. "We'll figure something out," he said uncertainly. "Maybe we can get a quick loan from another bank?" "At what interest rate?" Brenda clutched her head. 20, 30%? I'll never pay it off." "But we have no choice, Mom. We have to close this loan or it will get worse." His mother nodded, wiping her tears, pulling out her phone, and starting to look for short-term loan companies. Devin sat next to her, staring at the wall. One thought spun in his head. How could he have been so wrong about his wife? He thought she was weak, dependent, convenient. She turned out to be stronger than both of them. The night was spent making calls, trying to find money. By morning, Brenda had somehow scraped together $10,000, borrowing from distant relatives, promising to repay it with interest. She took out another $5,000 from a short-term lender at 30% interest. She withdrew the CD early, receiving $9,500, totaling $24,500. It was enough to close the loan and leave a small buffer. But now she had new debts. The short-term loan had to be repaid in a month. She promised the relatives repayment with interest in 3 months. Devin promised to help, but his net salary wasn't stretching, $3,500. Brenda was realizing, for the first time in her life, what it meant to be in debt, to depend on others, to beg. Her whole life she had controlled, commanded, decided, and now she was the one who was dependent. And it was all because of her daughter-in-law, the quiet, compliant Alina, who turned out to be anything but. Morning found Alina in the motel room. She woke up refreshed for the first time in ages. She showered, got dressed, went down to the lobby, and ate breakfast at the cafe across the street. Coffee, a croissant, yogurt. Ordinary food, but somehow it tasted better than anything she had eaten for the past 3 years. She turned on her phone. 53 missed calls, 42 messages. Alina deleted everything without reading it. Most were from Devin, a few from unknown numbers. She opened the messages. The first ones were hysterical. "Come back immediately. You have no right. I'll sue you." Then the tone changed to pleading. "Alina, please, let's talk. Mom is hysterical. Help us fix this. I know I was wrong." The last message came an hour ago. "You ruined our family. I hope you're happy now." Alina scoffed. She ruined the family? Not 3 years of humiliation, not the blocked card with the mocking announcement that she'd be begging for pads, not the mother-in-law's daily criticism. No, she was the one to blame. She deleted all the messages and permanently blocked Devin's number. Then she opened her contacts, found the number for a legal consultant she had saved long ago, just in case. She called. "Good day," a man's voice answered. "Themis Legal Consulting. How can I help you?" "Hello, can I file for divorce unilaterally?" "Yes, of course. You'll need to file a petition at the courthouse near your place of residence. If there are no disputes over assets or children, the procedure is simplified. We have no shared assets and no children. Then it's simple. File the petition, pay the fee. You wait 1 month for the cooling off period, and then you receive the divorce certificate. And if my husband objects? It doesn't matter. Unilateral divorce doesn't require the consent of the other party. The court can only delay the process if the spouse intentionally fails to appear at hearings, but the marriage will still be dissolved eventually." "I see. Thank you very much." Alina hung up. So, it was all manageable. She would file the petition next week once she was settled. Devin could object all he wanted. It no longer mattered. She got dressed and left the motel. She needed to buy the essentials: bedding, dishes, groceries. She went to the nearest mall and shopped without rushing, with pleasure. Bedding that felt nice to the touch, beige with a white pattern. Simple, white, but quality dishes. Towels, washcloths, shampoo, body wash. Food that she liked, not what Brenda would approve of. The receipt came to $800. Alina paid without hesitation. Her money, her choice. No arguments about squandering funds. She returned to the apartment with the bags and started setting up. She made the mattress with the fresh bedding, placed the towels in the bathroom, and organized the dishes in the kitchen. By evening, the apartment felt lived in. Not rich, of course, but cozy. And most importantly, it was her territory. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Alina frowned but answered anyway. "Hello, Alina Whitlock?" A woman's voice, anxious. "This is Denise, Brenda's sister." Alina stiffened. "I'm listening." "I wanted to talk. Tamara said you left, that there was a conflict." "There was. She asked me to call, to ask you, well, to help resolve the loan issue. She says you somehow blocked the money, and now she urgently needs to pay the bank back $20,000. I can't lend it to her. I'm in debt myself. Maybe you—" "Denise," Alina interrupted, "I didn't block anything. I exercised my legal right as a co-borrower. Your sister took out a loan, asked me to help process the paperwork, and I added myself with management rights. Then, when Brenda and her son decided to humiliate me by blocking my card and announcing I'd be begging them for pads, I disposed of the loan funds as I saw fit. I transferred it to charity. But that's her money, the loan money, but still, no, it's the bank's money that she is obligated to repay. I didn't break the law. Everything was within the terms of the contract. But she won't be able to pay it back. She doesn't have that kind of money. That's her problem, Denise, not mine. I lived in her house for 3 years and listened to humiliation every day, endured criticism, stayed silent when I wanted to scream, and saved money to move out. And when I was almost there, they decided to break me completely. They blocked my card to make me compliant. They thought I would crawl on my knees and beg for money. They were wrong. But Brenda is desperate. She's frantic, borrowing from everyone. She's already racked up new debts. Let her learn to live within her means. Let her understand what it's like to depend on someone else's will. I felt that for 3 years. Now it's her turn. You're cruel. No, Denise. I'm fair. Elina hung up. Her hands were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from relief. She had said everything she thought. She hadn't stayed silent. She hadn't avoided the question. She had told the truth straight out. The phone didn't ring again. Elina made herself dinner, pasta with vegetables, a simple but tasty meal. She sat at the table by the window, eating slowly, looking out at the evening city. Cars drove by, people walked past. Life was going on as usual. The next day, Saturday, Elina focused on settling in. She ordered an inexpensive sleeper sofa online with delivery in a week. She bought a small table, 2 chairs, and a floor lamp at a furniture store. Everything was simple, but functional. By evening, the apartment looked almost truly lived in. Sunday morning, Shayla called. "Elina, where have you been? I called you 100 times. Sorry, my phone was off. I moved out." "You moved out? For good?" "For good. I left Wednesday night and rented an apartment." "My God, finally! I'm so happy for you. What about the mother-in-law?" Elina briefly recounted the story. Shayla listened, gasping in disbelief. "Unbelievable! You took her down completely. What about Devin?" "Devin sends texts, but I blocked his number. I'm filing for divorce next week." "Good for you. He didn't appreciate you. Let him help his mommy pay off the debts now." "Exactly. Listen, let's meet today and celebrate your freedom. We'll go somewhere, hang out." Elina smiled. "Yes, I'd love to." They met at a cafe downtown. Shayla brought a bottle of wine to the new life. They chatted, laughed, and recalled the funny and absurd moments from Elina's life with her mother-in-law. Now from a distance, it seemed almost comical. The criticism over forks, the arguments over a coat, the attempts to control her every move. "You know," Shayla said, pouring the wine, "I always thought you were too soft, that they could mold you like clay, but you turn out to be quite the force. Still waters run deep." "I was just waiting for the right moment," Elina replied. "I don't like arguments, but when I'm backed into a corner, I know how to defend myself." "And how? Your mother-in-law is probably still in shock." "Let her be. Maybe she'll learn something." "I doubt it," Shayla scoffed. "People like that never change. They always think they're right." "Maybe, but that's no longer my concern." They stayed at the cafe until evening, talking about work, plans, and life. Shayla told stories about her dating adventures. Elina laughed. It had been a long time since she had laughed like that, easily, without tension, without worrying that someone would criticize her. She returned home late, around 10 o'clock. She went up to her apartment and turned on the light. The silence was hers, her silence, her space. Elina took a shower and lay down on the mattress. Tomorrow, the weekend would end. The work week would begin, the usual familiar routine, but without returning to a cage. Now she would come home to her own place, where no one would greet her with sarcastic remarks. She picked up her phone just because she had nothing else to do. She scrolled through the news and social media, stumbling across Devin's profile. He was still on her friends list, but she hadn't bothered to remove him. There was no point. The last post was from yesterday. Sometimes people show their true colors when you least expect it. Betrayal by loved ones is the most painful thing. Elena smirked. Betrayal. He called it betrayal. And what about him blocking her card and announcing she would be on her knees begging for money, even for her pads? What was that called? Care? She unfriended him and blocked him on social media. That chapter was closed. On Monday, Elena came to work refreshed. Her colleagues immediately noticed the change. "Elena, you look different," a woman from the next department said. "You're glowing." "I moved," Elena answered simply. "I live alone now." "Oh, I get it. Freedom. It's a great thing." The day flew by quickly. Elena worked with concentration, without distraction. At lunchtime, she went to City Hall and filed her divorce petition. She filled out the form and paid the fee. The clerk accepted the documents and said she would have to come back in a month for the divorce certificate. "And if my husband objects?" Elena asked, just in case. "It doesn't matter. You are filing unilaterally. He may be invited for a talk, but if he doesn't show up or objects, it won't stop the procedure. At most, it will drag out for a couple of months if it goes to court, but the divorce will still happen in the end." "Understood. Thank you very much." Elena left City Hall with a sense of finality. One more step taken. All that remained was to wait for the paperwork, and she would be officially free. That evening, when she returned home, a text message came from an unknown number. Elena opened it and recognized the writing style. Brenda. "Elena, I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, but what you did is too much. I'm drowning in debt now. I borrowed from everyone I could. The interest rates are outrageous. I don't know how I'll pay it off. Devin is helping, but he has his own life, his own expenses. Can we please work something out? I'm ready to apologize, to admit my mistakes. Just help, please. I'm desperate." Elena reread the message twice. Brenda was apologizing. For the first time in 3 years, she was asking for help, admitting mistakes. Too late. Elena started typing a reply. "Brenda, for 3 years you humiliated me. Every day, every minute. You begrudged me every bite of food, controlled my every move, demanded absolute obedience. When I tried to push back, you told me I had to be compliant, that a hungry woman quickly becomes submissive. You and your son blocked my card, thinking you could force me to crawl on my knees. You were wrong. I have no intention of helping you. You created this situation yourselves. You took out a loan, spent the money playing financial games. I merely exercised my legal right. Now, pay the price yourselves. As you often like to say, it's time to understand who the lady of the house is. Only now, I am the lady of my own life, and you deal with your debts yourselves." She pressed send, then blocked that number. The phone didn't ring again. Elena made dinner, ate, cleaned up the apartment, turned on the TV, and watched some movie, not really paying attention to the plot. Her thoughts were far away. She thought about how much time she had lost in that marriage. 3 years of her life spent trying to please people who didn't value her. 3 years of humiliation she endured, hoping things would get better. But nothing had gotten better, and nothing would have if she hadn't left. Now she was free. Yes, divorce, paperwork, Devin's possible attempts to claim some assets, though they had none, but all that was manageable. Most importantly, she was no longer in that apartment, no longer under Brenda's control, no longer dependent on Devin. A week passed. Elena was completely settled. The sofa was delivered. She arranged the furniture and hung light curtains on the windows. The apartment looked simple but cozy. She even bought a couple of houseplants, a rubber tree and a small violet. Taking care of them was enjoyable, a distraction from her thoughts. Work continued as usual. Shayla regularly stopped by her cubicle, asking how things were going. Elena's answer was short, fine, and it was true. Things were fine, even better than fine. Friday evening, as she was returning home, a text message came from Devin. He was texting from a new number she hadn't blocked yet. "Elena, I got the notice from City Hall. Do you really want a divorce? Can we please try to talk? I understand that Mom and I were wrong. I'm ready to admit it. Let's meet, discuss things." Alina stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and read the message again. Devin was ready to admit he was wrong, now that she had already left, already filed for divorce, already started a new life. She typed a response. "Devin, I don't need your apologies. I don't need to talk. I tried to talk to you for 3 years. I explained that your mother was humiliating me. I begged for your support. You either stayed silent or sided with your mother every time. When you decided to break me completely by blocking my card, you crossed the line. It's too late now. The divorce will happen. Don't try to stop me." She sent it, blocked the number, and kept walking. At home, she took a long bath, filling the tub with bubble bath, lying in the warm water, relaxing. She hadn't allowed herself such simple pleasures in a long time. It felt awkward to take a bath in Brenda's apartment. Her mother-in-law would inevitably say something like, "You're wasting water," or "How long can you splash around like a child?" Here, no one bothered her, no one judged. 2 more weeks passed. Alina fully settled into the rhythm of her new life. Work, home, occasional meetings with Shayla. A calm, measured life, without stress or arguments. One morning, as she was walking to work, she ran into a familiar figure, Brenda. Her mother-in-law was standing near the entrance to Alina's office building, clearly waiting for her. She looked terrible, haggard, aged, with dark circles under her eyes. She wore an old jacket, and her hair was unkempt. She was not the confident, well-groomed woman who had ruled her apartment for 3 years. Alina wanted to walk past, but Brenda blocked her way. "Alina, wait! I need to talk to you." "I have nothing to talk to you about, Brenda. Please, 5 minutes." Alina sighed and stopped. "Go ahead." Her mother-in-law nervously twisted the handle of her purse. I wanted to apologize. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you and didn't appreciate you. I was used to ordering everyone around, controlling things, and I didn't realize I had crossed the line. Devin understands it now, too. We're both to blame." "It's good that you understand," Alina replied evenly. "It's late, but better late than never. Maybe you'll come back? We'll change everything, I promise. I won't interfere in your lives. I won't criticize. I'll give you and Devin freedom." Alina looked at her for a long time. "Brenda, you don't understand. I will never come back. Even if you became the perfect mother-in-law, even if Devin got on his knees and begged, I am free. For the first time in 3 years, I am living the way I want to. No one tells me what to do. No one controls my every move. No one begrudges me every bite of food. You think I'll give that up?" "But Devin is suffering. He loves you." "Devin loved a convenient wife who stayed silent and endured. When I stopped being convenient, he tried to break me, blocked my card, and announced I'd be begging him for pads. That's not love, Brenda. That's a desire for control. He won't do that anymore. He will. Maybe not right away, but in a month, in a year, everything will go back to the way it was. Because neither of you knows how to live any other way. You're used to commanding. He's used to obeying you and expecting the same from his wife. I don't need that." Brenda paled. "So you won't forgive me?" "I have no intention of forgiving you. You owe me nothing. I owe you nothing. We are just different people, and our paths diverge. You live your life, and I will live mine." "But what about the debt?" Her mother-in-law's voice trembled. "I'm still paying it off. The interest is killing me. Devin is helping, but it's hard for him too." "That's your problem. You took out the loan, you pay it off. I'm not obliged to help you." "But you set this up yourself." "I exercised my legal right," Alina said sharply. "Everything was within the terms of the contract you signed without reading. I didn't break the law. I didn't steal your money. I simply disposed of it as I saw fit. You wanted to make me compliant, hungry, and dependent. I showed you that you too can be dependent. The lesson has been learned." Brenda looked at her daughter-in-law with a look of despair, then looked away and nodded. "Learned. That's good. Now go home and stop looking for me. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your presence in my life. It's over. Elena walked past her mother-in-law, entered the office building, rode the elevator to her floor, walked into her cubicle, sat down at her desk, and turned on her computer. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from relief. The last encounter, the last conversation. Now, it was truly over. The workday passed quickly. Elena focused on the documents, without distraction. At lunchtime, Shayla looked in, but seeing her friend's focused expression, she just waved and left. They would talk later. In the evening, Elena returned home, made dinner, and sat by the window with a cup of tea, looking out at the city, the lights, the cars, the people. Life continued without stopping. Her phone vibrated, a text message from Devin, again from a new number. Mom said she ran into you, that you won't even talk to her. Elena, are we really strangers to you now? Do 3 years mean nothing? Elena considered this. 3 years? Yes, that was a long time. It was a part of her life, but that part had been painful, difficult, full of humiliation. Why remember it? Why go back? She typed a reply. Devin, those 3 years taught me one thing. You cannot live with people who don't respect you. You and your mother didn't respect me. I was a convenient object for you, to cook, to clean, to be quiet. When I tried to be myself, you decided to break me. It didn't work. Now, live your own lives. I'm no longer a part of your life. Don't text me. Don't try to meet me. The divorce will be finalized in 2 weeks. After that, we are officially strangers. She sent the message, blocked the number, and turned off her phone completely. She sat back down by the window, finished her tea, and smiled at her reflection in the glass. 10 more days passed. Elena received a notification from City Hall. The divorce was finalized. She could pick up the certificate. She went on the appointed day and received the document. She decided to keep her married name. She didn't want the hassle of changing all her documents. It was just a name, nothing more. She walked out of City Hall and looked at the certificate. Marriage dissolved. Officially free. Elena put the document in her bag and went to work. The day was ordinary, unremarkable. In the evening, she stopped at the grocery store, bought groceries, and returned home to make dinner. Life continued as usual. Work, home, occasional meetings with Shayla. A calm, measured life without stress, without arguments, without humiliation. One evening, about 3 weeks after the divorce, Elena was sitting at home, flipping through a magazine. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She wondered if it was Devin again, but she answered anyway. Hello, Elena Whitlock? A man's voice, unfamiliar. My name is Julian. I'm from the accounting firm Alpha Consulting. You were recommended to us as a highly competent specialist. We have an opening for a chief accountant. Are you considering a new offer? Elena was surprised. Can you tell me more? Julian explained. The company provided consulting for small and medium-sized businesses. They were expanding and needed an experienced chief accountant. The salary was $6,000, with a full benefits package and an office downtown, a friendly team. That sounds interesting, Elena said. Can we meet to discuss the details? Excellent. Would 6 o'clock tomorrow evening work for you? It would. They arranged a meeting. Elena hung up and realized something warm was blooming inside her. A new job, more money, better conditions. Maybe this was a sign? The next day, she met with Julian. He was a pleasant man in his 40s, engaging and easy to talk to. He told her about the company, the team, and the responsibilities. Elena asked questions, clarifying the details. By the end of the meeting, she knew this was exactly what she needed, a new phase, new opportunities. I accept, she said. Wonderful. When can you start? We understand you need to give 2 weeks' notice at your current job. Agreed. They exchanged contact information and shook hands. Elena left the cafe where the meeting took place and felt a quiet joy. New job, new life, everything was falling into place. She worked out her 2 weeks' notice at her old job and said goodbye to her colleagues. Shayla was upset, but promised to keep in touch. "You're amazing, Alina. I'm proud of you. You were able to start over." "Thank you. It would have been harder without your support." They hugged. Alina collected her belongings from her cubicle and left the office for the last time. It was a little sad, of course, but a new opportunity lay ahead. The new job was exactly as promised. A friendly team, interesting tasks, and competent management. Alina quickly got up to speed and settled in. The salary allowed her not only to pay rent, but also to save. Maybe in a year or two, she would have enough for a down payment on a mortgage and buy her own home. Life was slowly but surely improving. Alina learned to appreciate simple things: morning coffee in silence, evening walks in the park, weekends without arguments or criticism. She no longer looked back at the past or thought about Devin and Brenda. They remained in that life that was over. One day, about 2 months after the divorce, Shayla mentioned that she had run into a mutual acquaintance who knew Devin. "She says he looks completely run down. His mother put all the debt on him. He's working himself ragged, doing side jobs in the evenings, barely resting. Brenda has aged, too. She looks terrible and is going to therapy now." "Well, let them," Alina replied calmly. "That was their choice. They created this situation themselves." "You don't regret it at all?" "No. I spent 3 years trying to please them. I endured, stayed silent, and tried my best. They didn't appreciate it. Now they're reaping what they sowed." Shayla nodded. "True. Don't waste your sympathy on people who didn't respect you." The conversation moved on to other topics. Alina no longer thought about her ex-husband and mother-in-law. They had ceased to exist for her. 6 months had passed since she left. Alina was fully established in her new job and had received a promotion. She was no longer just the chief accountant, but the company's financial director. Her salary had increased to $8,000. She started saving for a mortgage and looking at apartment options. Life was calm, measured, and fulfilling, without drama, without arguments, without humiliation. Just life, her life. One evening, returning from work, Alina stopped at a flower shop and bought herself a bouquet of tulips, just because. She brought them home and put them in a vase on the table. The tulips were bright yellow, sunny. Alina sat by the window with a cup of tea, looked at the flowers, and smiled. For the first time in many years, she was truly happy. Not wildly or hysterically, but calmly, steadily, deeply happy. She was free, she was independent. She was living the way she wanted, and no one could ever take that freedom away from her again. Her phone lay on the table, turned off. Alina had long since stopped expecting calls and messages from her past life. That life was over. A new one had begun, and this new life belonged only to her. She finished her tea, stood up, and walked to the window. The city below was bright with lights. Cars drove along the roads, and people rushed about their business. Life flowed on, never stopping, and Alina flowed with it, calmly, confidently, freely. Somewhere across town, Brenda was paying off debts. Devin was breaking his back at 2 jobs, trying to help his mother. They had built a cage for Alina, and they had ended up inside it themselves. The lesson was learned, harsh but fair. Alina walked away from the window, went to the sofa, covered herself with a blanket, closed her eyes, and fell asleep easily, without anxious thoughts. Tomorrow would be a new day, new tasks, new opportunities. Life goes on, and that is wonderful. You know, for a long time, I thought strength meant staying silent and enduring. But sometimes, real strength is walking away. Even when it hurts, even when you're scared. I learned that peace isn't something others can give you. It's something you choose for yourself. I had to lose almost everything to realize that freedom, self-respect, and calm nights are worth more than any perfect marriage or fake family peace. If my story taught me anything, it's this. Never let anyone make you small in your own life. Stand up, even if your voice trembles, because one day that same voice will tell your story of courage. If you agree with me and liked my story, show it by sending a like. Let's see our count. I'm curious. From which city and at what time are you listening to me? Write it in the comments. If you'd like to support me on my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with me. For more life stories like this, check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe. You'll see 2 new stories on the screen that I'm sure will catch your interest. Click one and start listening right away. Love. Maybe we all wear invisible scars, but that's what makes love real. It's not about perfection, it's about courage. So if you're listening right now and you've been hurt, don't give up on people. Sometimes, the right soul just takes a little longer to find you. If you agree with me and liked my story, show it by hitting the like button. Let's see how many of us feel the same. I'm curious, what city are you listening from, and what time is it there? Write it in the comments. If you'd like to support me on my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with me. For more life stories like this, you can check out other videos on my channel and subscribe. On the screen, you'll see 2 more stories I'm sure you'll enjoy. Click one and start listening now. With love, Betty.